Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Transportation to order. This morning we'll be hearing from the Department of Transportation, who will present their biennium budget. So we have with us the Director, Director Butai. Good morning.
Good morning. Chair De La Cruz, Vice Chair Kit Agaran, Chair Chris Lee, and Vice Chair Lorraine Inoue of Transportation, and honorable members of the Committee on Ways and Means and Committee on Transportation. Good morning, Happy New Year, and thank you for the opportunity to present the Department of Transportation's budget request for fiscal biennium 2021 to 2023. The Department of Transportation strongly supports the executive budget, which appropriates funds for the DOT's operating and capital improvement programs. In the Governor's budget for fiscal biennium 2021 to 2023, we respectfully request for your support to fully fund DOT's budget. For expediency, my discussion will focus on the 4 questions provided by Ways and Means. We have DOT's 4 deputies, Lynn Araki-Reagan of Admin, Ross Higashi of Airports, Derek Chow of Harbors, and Ed Snippen of Highways, and staff in our divisions remotely attending this hearing to answer any of your detailed questions as needed. Clarita Hironaka is our program budget manager, is here with me in person. I would like to note that January 11 is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, so many of us are wearing blue. We are the first state DOT in the nation to become a partner of this initiative to combat human trafficking. The first question, the overall mission of the Department of Transportation is to provide a safe, efficient, accessible, and sustainable intermodal transportation system that ensures the mobility of people and goods and enhances and/or preserves economic prosperity and the quality of life. In the pandemic, this has meant ensuring the lights stay on, keeping the public safe, and putting people to work. Despite the difficulties faced, the department has continued to keep all 3 divisions, airports, harbors, and highways operating and available for everyone's use. Our customers are basically all the residents and tourists in the state, as well as the state, county, and federal agencies who we work with. Everyone relies on the state's infrastructure, so we must keep the department running. Doing so during this difficult time has prevented additional disruption from affecting the already troubled state economy. The statewide airports system consists of 5 primary airports: Daniel K. Inouye International Airport, Kahalui Airport, Lihue Airport, Elizun Onizuka Kona International Airport at Keahole, and Hilo International Airport that serve domestic, overseas, and international carriers. 6 smaller airports that serve primarily propeller-driven commercial and general aviation traffic, serving both commercial and general aviation, and 4 small airports for general aviation. Airport's mission is to provide an airport system that reflects the unique spirit of aloha and connects Hawaii to the world. Customers are air travelers from state and out of state, airlines, food and beverage and retail concessionaires, rental car companies, the state, employees, the general public, and federal agencies such as Custom Border Patrol, Transportation Security Administration, and Federal Aviation Administration, among others. The statewide system of commercial harbors consists of 10 harbors and 6 islands. The system plays a vital role in Hawaii's economy as the ports serve as the primary means for goods to enter and exit the state. As you may know, an estimated 80% of all goods consumed in Hawaii are imported, of which 99% of imported goods arrive through the commercial harbor system. Hawaii's residents heavily depend on its commercial harbor system, and a disruption of ocean transport services will severely impair the state's economy. The commercial harbors pursuant to HRS 266 is a self-funded enterprise that generates revenue from harbor user fees and charges to cover operating and maintenance costs, as well as capital improvements projects and debt expenses for harbors modernization projects. The customers of the harbors comprise of all commercial harbor users in Hawaii, including cruise lines, commercial cargo operators, fishing and other commercial maritime-related services, maritime users, wholesale retail businesses, medical facilities, schools, restaurants, and the hospitality industry, and federal agencies such as the U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, among others. Highways Division accounts for only 22% of the total centerline miles of highways and roads, but the state highway system carries approximately 56% of the total 22.42 million annual vehicle miles traveled in Hawaii. The segments of the state highway system that experiences the highest freight volumes can transport over 20,000 trucks per day. By connecting communities and carrying high volumes of vehicles and freight, the state highway system enables the efficient movement of commuters and goods statewide. Customers, the state highway system provides mobility for over 1.4 million Hawaii residents, including a civilian labor force of approximately 680,000 people, over 8 million visitors, and over 32 million tons of freight each year. The General Administration's mission is to provide program leadership and staff support services by formulating policies and plans, directing operations, allocating resources, and other administrative services. The 3 divisions in the department, airports, harbors, and highways, are the customers. We also work with federal agencies such as U.S. Census Bureau, FAA, U.S. Department of Transportation, among others. State agencies such as the Governor's Office, BNF, Attorney General's Office, DAGS, DHERD, Department of Health, to name a few, and also employee unions, legislators, and county agencies and officials. The number 2 question, what is the current staffing and vacancies in meeting that mission and functions? The current total position ceilings for DOT consist of 2,807 for O&M plus 53 CIP positions, totaling 2,860 positions department-wide, which 2,222.25 FTE are filled and 637.75 are vacant as of November 30, 2020. DOT's overall vacancy rate is 22.3%. Almost all positions are special funded. Airports Division has a total position ceiling of 1,142, 1,145.25 FTE filled, and 286.75 vacant, with a vacancy rate of 20%, of which 61 critical positions have authority to hire and with 4 requests that have 24 vacant positions pending for exemption from hiring freeze. Harbors Division has a position ceiling of 270, 236 positions filled with 34 vacant, vacancy rate of 12.6%, of which 8 positions are authorized to be hired. Highways Division has a position ceiling of 1,044, 755 positions filled and 289 vacant positions, vacancy rate of 27.7%. Highways Division has received blanket approval to fill all its vacant positions except for 50 unfunded positions.
Only highways. Why? When you're finished, we can go over it.
Okay. Administrative Division has a position ceiling of 114, 86 positions filled and 28 vacant, 24.6% vacancy rate, of which 8 positions are authorized to be hired. Although DOT received approval to hire some of its vacant positions and Highways Division can fill all its vacant positions, airports, harbors, and administration need more flexibility to hire critical positions expeditiously to operate more efficiently. Having said that, we will carefully monitor our revenues to ensure that funding is sustainable for at least 4 years before we fill the position. And what is the number 3 question? What is the major lesson learned during the pandemic that more effectively meets our mission or improves performance? Are there any structural or budgetary shifts that will support this more effective activities? During the pandemic, the Department of Transportation has learned how to maintain critical infrastructure and services while adapting to the new paradigm of increased health, safety measures, and a sudden decline in revenues. To do this, the DOT has prioritized the following: continued implementation of operating conditions. Inasmuch as it was not business as usual, our facilities were open and operating. Compliance with security, safety, and environmental standards. Supporting commerce by facilitating the flow of goods and services, pushing forward with our high priority CIP projects to improve the state's infrastructure and leveraging our assets to keep as many people working as possible. Our department is an economic multiplier, resulting in trickle-down spending in the economy. We have carefully monitored revenues in supporting the department's special funds and adjusted plans as funding levels have declined during the pandemic. This has enabled the department to continue to deliver functionality to the people of Hawaii despite the difficulties presented by the pandemic. In general, the department considered efficient processes to allow the best use of our special funds that contribute to positive impacts in priority areas during the pandemic. Moreover, every division has risen to the challenge of this pandemic, whether through accomplishing our missions through remote work, stepping up and helping DLIR with the unemployment claims, by filling a short-term need to contact returning residents and visitors with the quarantine, using our facilities for surge testing at H3, airports, and harbors Pier 2, assisting with the enhanced verification process at the airports, and ensuring that all of our facilities are sanitized, distributing masks to all employees, handling the repatriation of passengers during the suspension of cruise operation, being one of the 11 airports to process travelers from overseas, and now assisting the AG's office with the COVID exemption applications after working hours. Many employees step up with duties outside of their normal assignments. These efforts and sacrifices reaffirm our employees' commitment to public service and our communities. For Airports Division, the COVID-19 has brought unprecedented challenges, both operationally and financially, and is expected to continue influencing the Airports Division in the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 biennium. The Airports Division has taken multiple actions to manage through this pandemic, including controlling expenses, including temporarily closing a portion of gates, freezing certain positions, and reducing special maintenance expenses, among other actions. We also reevaluated and adjusted our capital programs for financial reasons and near-term needs. However, the concern with the deferring projects is the need to re-request appropriations and allotments for the same projects in the near future. Issuing airports system revenue bonds to realize refunding savings, restructure debt portfolio, and to provide additional fund for capital projects. The 2020 bonds was issued at historical low interest rates, providing financial safety through at least December 2021. Working with tenants to provide emergency relief needed, including deferring rent and waiving minimum annual guarantees. Receiving coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security grant from the Federal Aviation Administration for $133.3 million, of which we have sought reimbursement of $108 million as of December 31, 2020. Implementing arriving passenger screening facilities and procedures before the October 15th deadline, enabling the state to gradually recover from traffic downturn. We are thankful that the legislature and the state provided $70 million for the passenger screening program. We continue to need flexible spending authority, including having the authorization to suspend HRS 103D to expedite procurement. At harbors, cargo continued to flow through the harbor system to support essential needs of the state's population. The construction industry, an essential business, was not affected by emergency proclamations. While cargo has continued to flow through the state's harbors, the division's revenue have fallen. As a result of the financial impacts and uncertainty to harbors revenues caused by the pandemic, the Harbors Division altered its plan to finance the final phase to complete the Kapalama Container Terminal, or KCT, the largest CIB project in the history of Hawaii's commercial harbor system. Harbors has pivoted from cash financing a large project like Kapalama Container Terminal Phase 2, wharf and dredging, waterside improvements, to mixed funding with cash and revenue bonds. In addition, other capital improvement plans were prioritized and deferred so that Phase 2 of the KCT project could be awarded and proceed. Prudent financial management has allowed the division to maintain a strong financial position, which will be critical to the completion and development of KCT and other modernization projects. Highways has been taking advantage of reduced traffic by accelerating the delivery of projects. Actual revenues collected into the State Highway Fund were impacted by the economic downturn caused by the pandemic. The division's budget requests were prioritized based on safety, system preservation, system efficiency, economic vitality, modal integration, and resiliency. All data related to these performance metrics are presented and tracked in the DOT website for your review. These goals were identified through discussions with leaders in legislature, business, and community with a focus on improving the quality of life and stimulating the economy. The Highways Division has also made a commitment to leverage its limited state funds with eligible federal funds and to issue additional revenue bonds in order to meet the division's overall mission and goals. The division has also necessitated in how the CIP program is delivered. Cash has been leveraged to increase issuance of revenue bonds. And then for administration, in response to declines in revenue experienced by all divisions, the general administration has reduced collection of the pro rata share from the divisions. This was achieved by identifying programs and projects that could be deferred or delayed at the present time. The reduced collection has allowed the divisions to reallocate the money that would have gone to the department's administration to instead be used towards their own divisional priorities. Number 4, the question was, what changes are requested to your current budget? For airports, besides the adjustment of non-recurring costs and collective bargaining to our current budget, airports is requesting the following. We're seeking a trade-off transfer positions from and within TRN 102 to combine one half-time visitor information program assistant, one position with two three-port time BIPA one positions to create two full-time equivalent positions, and transfer 3 BIPA one positions in TRN 102 to TRN 195 and redescribe to human resources positions. And due to the additional and improved facilities throughout the airports, we are expecting additional operational funding will be needed for special and routine maintenance, security, and other expenses. The airport is expecting to do $15 million, down from $30 million worth of special maintenance projects throughout the state each fiscal year. Higher salary rates, inflation, and increased coverage and security requirements necessitates increases to the security contract services by $4,634,400 combined at various airports. Other current operating expenses such as safety gear and supplies and routine maintenance are being requested. Increases to our lease financing agreements with our energy saving company for energy efficiency improvements results in requesting $1,068,341 in fiscal year 22 and $1.8 million in fiscal year 23. Adjustment to our debt service base of $170 million for both revenue bonds and CFC revenue bonds amount to a reduction of $39.8 million in fiscal year 22 and an increase of $32 million in fiscal year 23. Highlights of airport CIP projects: add 15 million in fiscal year 22 and 100 million in fiscal year 23 for Lihue Airport terminal improvements. Add 98 million in fiscal year 22 and 21.2 million in fiscal year 23 for airfield improvements statewide. Add 58.4 million in other funds for airport improvement statewide. And the main request for Harbors Division is to consolidate the 11 existing programs into one program, TRN 301, This consolidates all 270 positions and O&M and CIP monies in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 for the Harbors Division's various district programs IDs into one program entitled Hawai'i Harbor System. This proposed consolidation will allow the division to operate more efficiently and flexibly, as well as meet ongoing and future requirements in a timely manner. In addition to this consolidation, the division also requests CIP funds that will support the improvement of critical infrastructure, such as adding 10 million for Kahului Harbor, 10 million for Honolulu Harbor, 10 million for Kauai High, and for highways to enable the continued operation of the state highway system in the face of declining revenues. Highways Division is requesting a number of transfer trade-offs to allocate funds where necessary without increasing the division's budget. In addition, the division's requests special maintenance funds to maintain key infrastructure needs, as well as funds to cover debt service requirements. An increase in the federal fund ceiling will allow the division to leverage more federal funding towards the state highways, which will help offset shortfalls in special fund revenues. In this time of economic uncertainty, the CIP budget requests will allow the division to act as a source of local fiscal stimulus and economic stability. And highlights of the CIP requests, adding 41.5 million in fiscal year 22 and 103.5 million in fiscal year 23 for various bridges statewide, adding 63.7 million in fiscal year 22 and 14.8 million for highways planning statewide, adding 20.5 million in fiscal year 22 for vehicle to everything or V2X technology statewide, and adding 15 million in fiscal year 22 for rail line highway improvements in Oahu. And for the administration's request is to transfer one civil rights coordinator position from highways to improve the department's organizational structure. Increases in the federal fund ceiling in fiscal year 22 by 592,762 and 1.077 million for fiscal year 23 to enable the State Transportation Planning Office to support more programs in the state using federal funds. Lastly, every day our employees carry out difficult and challenging work that is often unseen by the public. They have a deep commitment to our mission, and I see them go beyond the call of duty time and time again to help our state and communities. I can't thank them enough, and they have my utmost admiration and respect. And thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony and for your continued support.
Thank you. Members, questions?
Just a quick one. In the past couple of years, there have been a number of bills, as you mentioned, to increase revenue, particularly for highways. But just in light of everything else going on, was there anything else this year outside the governor's proposed budget for revenue increases that the department would appreciate?
No, we're not proposing any increases. I know we got the rent-a-car surcharge for highways. I think we got the additional 3, but it's then we have it's been severely impacted by the lack of tourism, so it hasn't. And we were gonna use that money for capacity projects, but down the road we want to use it to float bonds.
And just following up on that, for the debate that's been going on over switching over to VMT as sort of the long-term transition away from the fuel tax. Even though we probably aren't going to have like a specific bill or anything that the department's pushing for this year around that, given this budget situation, is it time to have that next phase of that debate and try and move that forward, or is this something that you want to wait till after COVID subsides to really try and figure out?
I mean, we're doing that road usage charge. I know we're sending the report now to the people that are having their safety check, and they can make comparisons on how much they would pay under the fuel tax versus under road usage. So we've been asking people to participate, and let me ask Ed if he had anything else to add. This is more how.
Thanks, Jade. Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for the question. As Jade said, we're still going through the study for the VMT. What we want to do is make sure that we utilize the federal funds that we got to maximize that study, get that information to you, the policymakers, and Federal Highways, or US DOT, who funded the study. I think that'll give us really good insight into moving into that VMT discussion. In general, Highways absolutely supports considering this alternative look at how we fund the highway system. Mainly because we're looking at more efficient vehicles that are coming through, which is excellent. Absolutely support that. But also because the federal government looks at it, at this as the future for federal funding. If we are required to switch over later on when we're not ready, it'd be really difficult for the state to catch up. So better to be on the front end of it than trying to catch up on the back.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Can I further?
Senator Noy.
Ed, the road usage charge, I believe the project took us to, was it 3 or 4 years? So what year are we in, and when is the final recommendation?
We finished up our study this year. This is the final year of the study. We actually have until end of next year, but we'll run our 2,500 vehicles this year, get that information. And the information would be for the public to see what it would look like to be charged in a VMT versus gas tax. It would also give us the opportunity to see what it would take for DOT to upgrade its processes to ensure that we collect and we can enforce in this new collection type of situation.
Okay. You got another division. Can
No,
we?
wait, let's go one division at a time then.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for highways?
Just following up on that, going forward, saying that that's going to be the new way of us getting federal funds. But how is that going to impact the guys who use the cars, drive? So when you have this pilot program that you're doing, are you having a lot of them from the west side or areas that do the most driving with a safety check that upping in on this pilot program? Because guys like us who live on the west side, who deal with traffic all the time, is going to be paying for guys who don't pay for nothing, like the guys who get battery cars. I mean, I really don't see how the federal government is going to try to mandate giving us money to go with a program that we live on an island and not on a big freeway and highway where cars are driving for miles and miles without sitting in traffic and burning fuel. I think that's going to be a big damper in our economy and people that are driving in the community that are already having a hard time putting gas in their car.
Senator, that's already happening. With the gas tax situation the way it is, that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And in general, people who have gas-burning cars are actually funding things for people who are using more efficient vehicles. What we're trying to do is make sure that there is one type of payment that's required for everybody. So it's fair for everybody. It's a use charge that you get used only for what you do. That's the intent. So we believe that this is a fairer way to do things, but of course we're going to go through the study to ensure that it actually comes out there.
Okay.
Well, and maybe quickly then, you can just go over, there's the weight tax, right? So it just depends on how heavy your vehicle is. There's registration, and that everybody pays, generally the same. But the gas tax is going to be based on every time you put in gas. And is there, what are those are the three main sources, huh?
And then the
Yeah, there's
rental
the
car
three main
surcharge.
sources of our
And then
system:
the rental car.
gas, weight tax, and registration fees. Last session, we really appreciate that the legislature passed that bill that increased the registration fees for non-gas burning vehicles. That really helped in trying to balance out the equity on the system. That being said, we think there's a better way to make sure that everybody pays their fair share of the system.
Okay, since we have you, Ed, thank you for being here. I thought you'd be not a coolie, installing that, speed humps. So I'm getting people from that side of the island chiming in right now and asking the question, is it gonna be visible, yellow line, safety? And then what was the process? And you remember what happened in Never Beach, which we like ours in Never Beach, don't get me wrong. The bottom line is, the one going in Nanakuli right now, they just wanted to know what was the process and, who was the entities that you guys got? You guys see Topola was on and other neighborhood board members was on. How did you get this information out to the community, Ed?
So overall, the process of us considering locations for these raised pedestrian crosswalks is the same. In general, when we started looking at the Nanakuli area, we saw 3 fatalities in a 5-week period. We saw 2 major accidents in that area that didn't result in fatalities, but were a result of speed. If there was a pedestrian in those crosswalks at that time, there's a potential that could have been deadly as well.
Yep.
So that was the impetus for the project, as for all of them. In general, we love to get community impact or input first for these types of situations. We'd love to see what the community thinks and see how we could adjust the project to ensure that it's the best for the community. But in this instance, when there's a significant safety issue that we need to address, we need to move right away. So we moved it as quickly as possible, and we got as much information to the community on when we would put it in as soon as possible. We just lined up the contractor. The contractor was supposed to be coming in February, but something opened up that allowed them to come in earlier. For me, earlier is better, especially for the safety situation. Only understanding that there's going to be a shorter fuse on giving more information to the community. But that's where it's at. So we're trying as much as possible to get information out. I appreciate you doing so as well. And we're going to make sure that we make it as safe and easy for the community as possible. That being said, I cannot put yellow lines on the speed humps.
Yeah.
That doesn't fit with the MUTCD or federal requirements.
Yeah.
So we're doubling up the white lines. And if you see the ones that we installed so far, they're very visible, the
Yeah.
white line. What the concern is from the community is when we have those interim striping, the interim striping is not as visible.
Yeah.
So what we ask the contractor to do is, for the interim striping, we're tripling up the striping to ensure that everybody can see it.
Right. Oh, no, I totally support that, what you guys are doing out there. I just getting concerns about it because I love the one in Never Beach. It helped planning for not only the pedestrians that are crossing by the school and our buses that have passengers coming up. And I think the safety is more than, important than, convenience. So I like to think that you guys are gonna go 25 miles an hour over there too. That's another one. So congratulations. That's a good one. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the support, Senator. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for highways? Any members on Zoom? Okay, Senator Inouye?
Highways?
No, this
I
is
mean, I'm
highways.
sorry, airports.
Airports. Ross,
Go ahead.
Okay.
wait. All right. Ross, are you on?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Ross, for being here. My question is, in your requested O&M budget, the adjustments for 2022 and 2023 is pretty significant. You went from 3.9 million for 22, and then you jumped up to 68,851,339 for fiscal year 23. Why is there such a big gap?
We had to make an adjustment for our debt service. There was a double appropriation in 22. So we corrected that, and then we had to put the true figure in for 23.
Okay, so that means the numbers you guys originally provided were incorrect?
No, it was just that the figures that we had in the base budget was overstated from the years before. So we need to make that adjustment.
Okay.
Years.
Okay, going back to the airports, in particular DKI, when are the concessionaires going to be back? Is it their option that they open up anytime they feel they want to? I was just wondering because we noticed that there's an increase in passenger arrivals now and more activity, and it's kind of Deadsville at the airports. You know, we travel every week, but it's kind of sad because your limited eating spaces and the other concessions like the lay stand. I mean, there's kind of, the feeling is pretty much unsettling because it seems like there's no activity, but there's more, and you know that you live there at the airport. I'm just curious to see when the concessionaires are going to return.
Senator, every concession is open except retail and duty free. And the concessions are open based on the demand of traffic, so they're basically tracking the traffic.
Okay. With regards to DKI, I noticed that the restaurant, aside from Starbucks, who's pretty much doing pretty good, only with one station, but you have the smaller concession that's close to, I would say, 18, 19, below the gift shop. And that used to be popular because they have, I guess, inexpensive food supplies there. So I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, again, that's under our food and beverage HMS. So again, they track traffic and demand.
Okay.
So as far as they opening it, I'm leaving it up to them.
Okay, can you, I think I sent a note to you and Chauncey with regards to Hilo Airport Restaurant. What's the update? Because it's closed. There's no food available for even the employees except for Mikey's coffee shop.
I can double check, but again, it's the traffic flow is so low that it's not efficient for them to be open.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Other questions for airports?
I have a few questions, I think this before, on the transportation and airport. I wanted to just kind of touch on with airports and with Director Butai. Just had a question, because I know part of the, just see if you can I guess answer this, because there's a concern about some of the stuff that happened with, not only with the airport and private partnership. But I just wanted to know, for the private partnership procurement for Daniel K. Inouye Airport, International Airport, were you in support of the private partnership for that project?
Oh, you know what though? Why don't we stick to policy questions in the committee? Because if we can focus more on budget, because
This is part of the budget because it talks about procurement and private partnership in the sense of how we're going to save, and the cost was a little bit less with private partnership. So that it also goes into the airport and transportation budget.
so which table and which line item are you talking about?
Okay, never mind. Okay, go ahead.
So that which specific line items or pages did you guys talk about PPP?
I don't think there's any P3, we don't have any P3 line item, right?
For
I'll
Ross,
bring this up later, that's okay, not a problem.
Ross, yeah, which,
Because it worked fine at the airport, I just want to know, because in the future, we're going to go stadium, right? We'll go stadium. I just wanted to know why the cancellation for other things, especially for our project with the rail at the airport, with the P3. That's what I wanted to know. So if, I know it's not a line item, but that's okay if you guys can answer, because it's not a line item.
no,
But it's something that the community should know when financing coming, going forward with our future projects for the state.
okay, wait though. So what you're suggesting is that the construction of the rail station at the airport, you mean?
Yeah, so we had canceled the P3 for any of the rail project going forward. But we had pick and choose when we was gonna have P3 for stadium and part of the airport, development in the past. So I just like know in the future, as transportation go forward, now that we have the P3, what kind of financing and what kind of money that we're looking at? And because we get a skin in the game regardless if we say we don't, we're gonna be giving funding and money comes from the state just as much as the city. I just like to know what was the stance with the supporting one area of the P3 and future P3 with the stadium, and then canceling the P3 with the rail.
Okay, so for the Aloha Stadium, there's a specific bill that will allow for the
Right.
public-private partnership, so that's separate from this.
Yeah.
So most public-private partnerships right now have to be authorized by a bill that the legislature will pass. The transportation heart one, that has nothing really to do with
No,
airports.
I'm on the board, but I don't, and I
Yeah,
don't
so-
speak for the board.
So that's with the city and heart. But with some of these other things, I know DLNR has tried, but it may not necessarily be PPP, but it's going to be some type of, I guess, creative procurement.
Right.
But for real PPP, there's only going to be a few agencies that can do that now. I think it's like HHFDC,
Right.
HTDC, ADC, and there's probably a few others. But Ross, are there any ongoing PPP projects, or are there any PPP projects that got canceled at the airports?
There's nothing.
See, that's why they wanted to do that airport authority, because they wanted to have some flexibility, I gathered.
Okay. Thank you.
They want it, but they have to have enabling legislation.
No, I just was kind of confused because I know he's on the board and he voted no for
Well, we
continuing
did,
the P3.
the board didn't cancel the
You know what I mean?
P3, Senator. It was the reason that P3 failed with the heart is because when the city pulled out, because the way the P3 was structured, it was a DBFOM. It's a design, build, finance, operate, maintain. Our portion is only the design build part, because after we build the guideway and the rail the train starts to operate, it's the city that's gonna take over. So, I mean, it's not like we can just pick and choose which part of the P3 we want.
Right.
I mean, because it's a,
No, I understand the city would pull out, but you had not you didn't, when you was on the board, you didn't vote in favor to continue.
I did, I voted in,
Right.
to do the P3. I mean, but it was it was one of the options, and if it was gonna, I mean, we had concerns and apprehension about it. I mean, I thought it went a bit too long, and once we kind of knew what the numbers were, but I supported the P3, but because P3 was supposed to reduce the
Right.
risk, but if you're getting the numbers that's almost double what your estimate, I mean, I don't know how you.
So each of the projects with P3 would be different then, so.
Oh, yeah,
or
yeah.
with the-
No, so there's
With the
different.
stadium gonna be different,
Yeah,
rail,
yeah,
then.
yeah. Because
airport.
there's several different options for P3. The hard option was really like what the director is saying, is an operational and maintenance P3. But there are other options where when you include development, the revenues from the development pay for the operations. And to me, that was one of the glaring, I guess, pukas, if you will, with the heart one. I support P3, but how does the private guy make money, and how does the city not have to pay for, if not, the city's going to end up paying either way.
And it was but when the city pulled out, or it was a moot issue. I mean,
Yeah.
because we cannot continue if the city is not in the picture.
Right. So it's just kind of confusing because they had this big thing promoting this P3 at the Blaisdell, and then all of a sudden they yank it, so it's kind of confusing. All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions for airports online? Okay, I had a
I just
couple.
had-
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just had one real quick. Just for airports, while we're on, thank you so much for your presentation. with respect to the Dillingham airfield situation, if there is a change in timeline, if the state gets sued or whatever, and operations continue on, is that going to have any sort of material impact on the operational budget going forward, or any sort of uncertainty there?
Yeah, that is why we still have an operational budget requested there. We do plan to return the airport again on June 30th of this year, 2021.
So,
They're going to return it.
so if that does go through in that date this summer, does the rest of that budget that's been appropriated just fall back into?
So we will still have to return as far as, past June 30th, 2021. There's still going to be overhead expenses involved.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I have one question.
Okay, Senator Marwaki.
Thank you for airports. Thank you for all you've done in terms of responding for COVID and trying to get the airports up to speed. I just was interested that you had CARES funds for 133 million, and you've been able to get reimbursed only for 83 million. What's happening to the balance, and what kind of time frame do you have to spend that now?
I'm not sure where you got 83 million from.
I think that's what the director just said, but I saw in your report, you said that you used
108.
first for 108 million.
Yeah,
Or is it
108 million, Senator.
million?
And we have it till 2024 to spend that money. 2024.
2020.
Yep.
Yeah,
May
so
3.
basically what we need to do is we need to support, it's a reimbursement grant. So we need to show the expenses that we've incurred. And so we should be able to get reimbursed for the full 133 within the next couple of months. So we need to submit, for example, payroll, security costs, utilities, and so forth. So it's a reimbursement grant.
When I look at table 11, and you've got all these janitorial positions, like 29 of them vacant, will some of that be funded by CARES, or is that you're looking at permanent positions for the airports?
That is all permanent positions for the airports.
So there's no way that some of the CARES Act funds can be paid for those kinds of services to sanitize the airports?
The CARES Act is basically a reimbursable grant. So it's basically an offset to the expenses that we incur. And it's not, it's for a specific period of time, and we expect to utilize the entire CARES grant in this fiscal year.
So you have sufficient numbers of positions now, or you're handling, how are you handling sanitizing the airports, because you've got them operating now? How are you paying for that?
We're paying that through our airport revenues. And through our airport revenue fund. We would like to fill more positions, but we had a lot of retirements within the last 6-9 months.
Yeah.
So when the traffic comes back, we need to be ready for that demand. So we'd like to fill them as much as possible. But again, we're cognizant and we need to be able to make sure that the revenues are sufficient to pay for our expenses.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead.
Just for the airports, what are we proposing that we can do to keep air service from Molokai and Lanai? Because right now, Mokolele is the only airlines is left that is servicing from those islands. What is our future plans for our neighbor islands, Molokai and Lanai?
Again, Hawaiian is going to terminate service, I believe, on January 14th. We do have Mokulele serving those two airports, and again, based on demand, we should see another carrier like Ohana by Hawaiian return. Again, it's all based on demand of traffic, and that's the reason why they pulled out.
So you think, after everything starts coming a little bit better, you think they're gonna, go back and, open up other, flights besides Mokulele?
I'm sure.
And then, one more, on page 4 and 5 of the testimony, you, sent prior to the meeting, providing examples to the division, making changes in operations due to the pandemic. How much more were your expense for the past calendar for 2020, and how much more of these expenses, unexpected expenses, are being covered? Is it going to be covered by the COVID-19 CARES Act or other recent federal subsidies acts passed by Congress in the past December?
So effective, we were only covered up to December 31st with the 70 million CARES grant with the state. As far as the 133 CARES Act that was given to us, and we expect another 42.5 from the second stimulus that should support our overhead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on table 9.
Yes.
Can you describe what the excess amounts are?
The excess amounts exceeding appropriation, again, if you see the reason for exceeding the ceiling, basically those are due to the CARES Act. So the CARES Act allowed us to, FAA supported or subsidized the normal 25% for Honolulu and OGG. Normally the State Air Force Division needs to kick in that as a matching fund. And then for the remainder islands, the 10% is also a matching fund. But during the COVID period, I believe down to December 31st, not sure. Anyway, the CARES Act allowed the FAA to support that extra matching fund.
No, that's fine. I want to know what the expenses are. What caused that amount?
You guys, do you have that answer for that? That's the 133 department.
If you guys can give me a breakdown of the expenses of what caused those additional excess amounts.
Those are for your projects, right? What is that last three? So, for example, 102. Sorry.
No,
Sure.
if you guys can send me a memo, it doesn't sound like you guys have it right now. So if you can follow up and send me what exactly cost that excess amounts. Okay, table 12. So you're telling me that airports has 0 89-day hires?
Well, we do have.
It says here, none. You look at the last column, it says occupied by 89-day hire, and then it says none.
We need to correct that. We do have 89 year hires.
So how many 89-day hires do you have, and how long has their contracts been renewed? When was their start? When was their start date? How long have they been renewed, and how much are they all getting paid?
Okay. We'll get that to you, Chair.
Okay, so do you know offhand how many 89-day hires you guys have?
Ross, maybe
would be good.
maybe ask Ray to, Ray? Lynn, put it on Lynn, Araki.
We have about a dozen.
Vacancy list in the packet has the 89-day hires noted.
No, but it's not on airports, other positions, table 12, where it's supposed to be noted.
I I understand. Just wanted to advise that 89-day hires are reflected on the vacancy list.
Okay, that's the wrong area to have it included in. So you're talking about table 11.
Yes. There's a column that states 89-day hire. But it's my understanding that there's approximately 12,
About a dozen.
about a dozen in the airports division who are 89-day hires.
Okay, so are all of the 89-day hires reflected on table 11 or no? Are there some missing from that table?
Then table 12 is actually for positions. We understood that table 12 is actually for positions that are exempt from civil service type positions.
Yeah, but if you're 89-day hire, you're not part of the civil service.
That's correct, but they are occupying positions that are civil service. So that's.
Okay, so how many 80,
We have about a dozen.
and that's all reflected on table 11?
That's correct, Senator.
Okay, so like for instance, I don't understand why, as like Senator Moriwaki had discussed, if you look at janitor 2, you guys have 4 89-day hires, yet you have vacancies. So I'm not sure why DHERD or BNF hasn't authorized the hiring of that. Okay, then you have office assistant, you have 3 89-day hires, yet you do have authority to hire, but it's occupied by 89-day hire.
Yes, so when the freeze took effect on April, we had those positions occupied by 8-day hires, and so we continued them on to hire those people. But the freeze, I believe, has not been lifted yet for some of those positions.
Okay, so has the request been made in, or is it our understanding that you don't need these positions and we can cut them?
No, we're gonna request to fill them, Senator.
Because that's quite a bit that are not authorized. So if they're not authorized, I'm assuming that the governor is saying that they don't need to be filled. So that means those are positions we could probably cut. But there's quite a bit of janitor positions, which surprises me, going back to what Senator Moriwaki said. Carpet cleaner, I mean, those are positions that probably we need now more than ever, but I'm not sure why they're stuck.
So a lot of those positions that Senator Moriwaki referred to, I believe are positions that were meant for the concourse that have not yet been opened.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're saying that the janitor is only going to go to a certain area and not help out with the whole sanitization effort?
Ross, would you like to answer that, please?
Need to fill the positions, well, we're gonna have to request that those positions get filled. That's a good point.
Okay, so from some of these positions, what are you guys going to start to outsource then? You know, like some of these things, for instance, visitor info program. You know, Senator Kim during the COVID committees has constantly said that as people arrive, they need to be informed on the COVID protocols. And these are positions where the visitor info program, if they're at the baggage claim, they can start to inform many of our visitors on the different protocols. You have a question?
I just was following on what you were saying. So the job description that you guys have over there, what Senator Donovan De La Cruz said, carpet cleaner. So is this a position that that's all they do all day? Would be just cleaning carpets? Because I know you get custodial work that they multitask, right? Cleaning not just the toilets and whatnot, they're wiping down railings, cleaning the restrooms. But these positions that he was reading off, are there tasks just for cleaning and refurbishing or whatever, keeping the carpets clean?
But they're not even filled.
That's what I mean. So who's doing it now?
Any type of flooring work, carpet or terrazzo, they take care of that.
I don't know what- Jay, can you ask him to repeat? I can't
To
hear
repeat, we
him.
couldn't
Yeah,
hear.
couldn't you understand it?
Russ, why don't you take up your mask so we can,
They take care of any type of flooring type work, carpeting, terrazzo work, polishing the terrazzo, tile work. They take care of that kind of maintenance.
Okay, so how many people are doing that now, and how, because you give us a list of vacancies, but what we don't have is how many positions are currently filled to do all that work. So do you have an adequate amount of staff to do that, or are these,
You want to?
38 per shift.
38 per shift
Per day.
per day.
And we are short.
And
okay.
we are short.
Okay, so if we can get a list from the 89-day hires of the, when the start date, how many times the contract was renewed, and what the salaries are.
Okay.
Okay, table 13. Can we get a breakdown of overtime expenses? And then table 14. Can we get a list, because all we see is from the contracts, what was billed. So how many contracts had change orders or extensions that were not part of the original contract? So that first, we don't have indicated. So if you can at least highlight the contracts that went above and beyond the original contract. And what those amounts are. So I was trying to look for the AMR contract. I don't see that.
It just one.
This will went in.
Right. So it's the worst.
Yeah. So, but he's looking for the more. That's one of them as well. We'll go look for it. I'm not sure why it's not here. Is that under our purchase order? No.
We just advertised today. This is here today. So we're going to post on these things.
Okay, so what other contracts besides AMR are not on this list? Can you guys review it again?
We'll double check the list for AMR and why it's not. But this should be all of our maintenance contracts.
We're doing just at the here.
Yeah, but
We're doing the COVID.
supposed to be all contracts though, not just maintenance contracts.
Seeing if the AMR is not here, what else contracts are we missing? I don't know the answer to your second, but we will look for your AMR contract.
Okay, how much is the AMR contract?
It's not an active contract, that's the reason why, okay?
Staggered 1,000. Most of it.
So Senator, the reason why this is, it's not an active contract because the contract is already, has expired.
Okay, so how are you supplanting the services?
Chief.
We did Senator, we did it under the proclamation, and we did it using the purchase order for the COVID. That's the direction we got from SBO 103F.
No, so it's still a contract then?
Can you repeat that?
So you're still contracting AMR to just another venue then?
Yes, we're still covering.
Yeah, so why wouldn't it be on the list?
We'll go do our research on that. I'm not sure why.
Good. Okay. Well, I want to try to see if there's a cost analysis to see if, I mean, that's a capability that airports should establish, or do we continue to contract? But if you guys don't include those costs in here, it's hard for us to determine that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any questions for harbors?
I have a question.
Okay, Senator Moriwaki. For airports or harbors?
Yes. Harbors.
Okay.
Going to harbors,
Okay.
unless there's any air.
Anybody for airports? Okay, we'll go move on to harbors. Can we give Derek just a minute to put on his camera? Okay, go ahead, Senator.
I'm on now, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Senator Moriwaki?
Morning, Derek. Hi, Derek. Yeah, I just wanted to, as we're talking about airports and they're managing the janitorial services and looking at contracts and what's cheaper, or not cheaper, but more cost effective. Harbors has now come, and I don't know when you started this one program ID that allows you to shift and address problems or needs in the harbors. Can you just discuss that real quickly and how you're able to address the needs of the harbors more cost effectively, or if there were any savings?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Senator, for the question. So we still budget directly by districts and projects, but what we're asking for is that, we still prepare our budgets based on project and district. But what we're asking for in terms of the appropriation is that all the appropriation be placed under TRN 301. Now, the advantage that gives us is, because we are a small facility, small system, and when we need to shift money around, we have to go through the process of requesting that through BNF and the governor's office. What this allows us to do is to do that internal to DOT, and we can make those shifts, and therefore we can procure the item or cover those costs more immediately. The kinds of things that have been in the past included some contracts where there's an overage in the contract and maybe some labor. It's amounted to about $400,000 per year. So relative to our overall budget, it's been a small amount that we've actually had to transfer, but nonetheless, that transfer has taken time to actually execute. So we're asking for the flexibility to be able to manage that ourselves.
So in terms of positions as well, when you're transferring positions, you can do it. And for example, if you had janitorial needs, you can shift, and it's all done at your level rather than getting approvals all up the chain of command. Is that how you operate?
No, ma'am. As far as the request to fill the position, we still have to go up the chain and get approval through Budget and Finance and the governor's office. We still need to go through that process. Over.
Including collective bargaining.
And so has this started already, or you're asking for the shift now to be able to do this? Is that correct?
Ma'am, we're asking for the shift of
For
everything.
one ID.
Yes, to one program ID, TRN 301 this year, this biennium.
So that's going to be a bill coming in, or is that you're doing it by budget request?
Doing a budget request, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just go back to airports real quick on table 3? Ross.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, can you guys send us a memo on the impacts of these cuts? And how they're gonna, how the airports are gonna decide where to make them?
Okay.
Because a couple of them are up to 90%. So, okay, thank you. Okay, questions for Harbors? No questions. Okay, Derek,
Yes, sir.
the maintenance reduction, can you explain that?
Yes,
On
sir.
table 5?
So,
Because you're saying that it negatively impacts your division's ability to conduct special maintenance projects.
yes, sir. So in past budget, we had a reoccurring special maintenance budget of $15 million, one five. And in the most recent budget last year, the legislature added another 5 million. What this is doing here is this is eliminating the additional 5 million that we've been receiving. Over.
Okay, but your impact sounds extreme.
Well, we will have to live within our means. We will have
Yeah,
the
but-
remaining.
But you're special funded.
Yes, sir. So we would
I
defer
understand
and reprogram those projects to future years if we aren't able to implement those projects in the current.
Okay.
Can I
Senator Inoue.
Yeah, just following up with regards to what the chair talked about, the $5 million. Can we get a breakdown to the chair then?
Of what's gonna impact.
Where it affects, what harbors?
Vice Chair, we'll try to do that. The nature of the special maintenance program is that we meet every year with the districts and we develop a needs list. And from that is where we determine how we use the available special maintenance funds for that needs list. There are some carryover projects, but I'll put together whatever we can.
Okay, you're special funded, so, why not continue to use that positions? That's interesting, because for harbors, you never know when you're going to need somebody, because it seems like you're having incidences
Yeah.
pretty much often. So that's, in our words, I think we're just saying it's kind of important to make sure that you have those positions filled.
Well, that affects, products delivery, toilet paper, it affects a lot of.
Exactly, exactly. Okay.
Senator, if I may clarify, so this is the program funding not for labor, but for the actual project themselves.
No, I know, but if the
Yeah.
the projects are not complete, that could have an impact on service, on operations.
That's correct, yes. So what we'll have to do is, again, every year we meet with our district offices and we generate a special maintenance project list. And then that is this fund is what we use to procure those items. So we do have $10 million remaining in the special.
Oh, that's hardly any, though. So that's 2 more years.
So, yeah, thank you, Chair. So since we're bringing up the products, during the pandemic, it negatively impacted our only board services from Young Brothers taking essential goods to the neighbor islands. What does your guys' division propose so that the neighbor islands and harbors can continue receiving goods that the neighbor islands and residential must have? So similar to what Senator Donovan De La Cruz says, so if we don't have these things in place, how we can ensure our neighbor island residents to receiving these essential goods that they desperately need?
Yeah, thank you, Senator, for the question. So making sure that all communities throughout the Hawaiian Islands receive the goods they need is very important to us. We're responsible for the infrastructure, but we work closely with the shippers, Asia, Matson, and of course, Young Brothers, who does the inter-island shipping, to make sure that they have the available facilities for that. I think maybe what you're referring to is what was experienced this year with some of the routes being changed or schedules being changed, and making it unpredictable. There's a Senate Resolution 125 that created a working group where we are all talking about how we create a more viable and predictable inter-island cargo service system. Over.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Keith Agaran.
Sorry, thanks. I guess the question I have generally is, with the specially funded divisions, how much has the economic downturn affected the level of special funds that you have? In terms of, I would guess that you're dependent on the actual use of your facilities. So following up on the questions from my colleagues, you're specially funded. So are you saying that your special fund has been impacted? I mean, I can see airports maybe because of landing fees, but with harbors too?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. So no matter what, during the pandemic, harbors and our harbor operators continued to work throughout the pandemic. There wasn't a time that any of us were shut down. However, the amount of goods coming into Hawaii because of the shutdown of the schools, the tourism, have caused a decline in the cargo volumes. So while the harbors remain open and harbors continue to pass cargo through from Honolulu to the neighbor islands, the reduction did create a reduction also in the revenue or income that we generated from that cargo volume. Over.
And has that gone into then the decisions that are being made then to not fill positions? Is that what we're dealing with here?
Yes, sir. In a way it has. We are dealing with a lesser income stream. So in the next biennium, we are looking at a slow growth back to the economy and getting back to where we were in 2019 in terms of our budget. That has caused us to rethink what are our project priorities, especially in the face of the Kapalama Container Terminal that Director Butai mentioned as being our #1 priority, and most of our resources are going to that. So we've shifted employees around to assist where we have a need with the priority project. And we've elected not to fill some positions until we get a better sense of what our future revenue stream is going to be once the economy.
Okay, thank you. Chair, if I may, if you could just ask the other divisions at DOT if they've been impacted similarly, because I know that in the past we've always had issues with the health of the highway fund, but I'm also curious about airports then in terms of their ability to actually fund their operations.
Okay.
And I don't need the answer here. I mean, they can respond in writing, and I can look at it later. Thank you.
Okay. Derek, but based on that question, why is it a full-on $5 million cut versus something less if you still have some revenues? Because then you're just going to affect projects.
Yeah, so we're trying to balance the special maintenance program with our continuation to develop and implement new projects for the future, including addressing climate change. So what we're seeing by this budget is there's a decrease in our special maintenance program down to $10 million from the 15 that was reoccurring and the $5 million that the legislature plus us up in past years.
Okay, but you still have projects that need to be completed.
Yes, sir.
From an economic point of view, we need to keep construction moving.
That's
It
correct.
just seems awkward
Yeah.
that we would cut the 5 million knowing the CIP budget is less. We gotta create more, we have to have a high level of construction jobs because of the fact that tourism is down. Just seems awkward, and then on top of that, it's special funded.
Yeah, so, Senator, we are trying to live within our means with what we anticipate the revenues to be in the future with the effects of the pandemic. So we are balancing where we place our money onto both the special maintenance program as well as the TIP program. Right now, the major focus is in the Kapalama Container Terminal where most of our money is.
Okay, thank you. I noticed you guys had a different approach to your vacancy table. So if you look at your vacancy table, you actually inserted freeze versus airports did not indicate that, which I appreciate. I think this is the better way to do it, because then we can see what you're having to deal with, and if the committee would actually have to work with the administration on removing the freeze. My understanding, though, from the governor was that they weren't going to freeze special funded positions.
That's correct.
So I'm not, and that they wouldn't be affected by the furlough either. But thank you for noting the freeze on the positions.
You're welcome, Chair.
If we can go to highways, I wanted to ask, last year we had a hearing on vacancies, and you had a pilot project that I think expanded quite successfully with WikiWiki. So if you can just give us an update on that.
Absolutely, thanks, Senator. WikiWiki programs has been going on really, really well. We had problems filling several categories in highways, primarily in engineers. We couldn't get enough in fast enough. The typical process in general took about 9 months. So, I mean, imagine coming to an interview and we telling you that we really like you, we really need you. We'll see you in 5 to 9 months. In general, those really good people go away to find really good positions elsewhere. So we worked with DHERT, who helped us out tremendously in setting up this WikiWiki program. The intent of the program is for DHERT to qualify an individual to make sure that they meet the requirements of a position, and then turn over all other works to DOT. In order for them to do that for us, they had to get very comfortable with us in being able to deliver. They guarantee that within 1 or 2 days, they'll qualify a person. They'll let them know and they'll let us know. Then it's turned over to us to make sure that we can follow up and get these people in immediately. We worked with Jade to adjust some of our hiring procedures to make sure they're more streamlined. We got all of our senior managers and their assigns qualified to be hiring managers. So now we don't have to wait on people's schedules to set up meetings to get people on board. We just do it. So now the process went from that 5 to 9 month time frame to 5 days. Within 5 days, we can get people advertised and onboarded. Engineers worked out so well that we're working with DHERT to expand that program to 4 other categories within our division. In order to do so, and rightfully so, DHERT is saying we're going to get really slammed by the number of applications that are going to come in. So we're working with them to try and assign 6 positions from highways that highways will pay for into DHERT's office. Not only to take care of just highways, but expand to the other divisions and potentially other departments who are ready for this. Again, the departments have to commit that their managers will go in and get trained and follow up on everything to the T. Our managers have done tremendously in this.
Well, thank you. I think that's, I'm glad that you guys expanded upon that. I know it was stuck for a little while, and I'm hoping that you actually can accomplish what you're talking about in expanding it, not just to your division, but the entire department and other departments.
No, appreciate the support from this committee. I mean, this committee brought up the concerns from last year, pushed forward hard on ensuring that we can start filling our positions faster. So really appreciate all the support. Really appreciate the support from DHERT, who's been done a tremendous job as well.
So on your table 11, I'm assuming if number of 89-day hire is blank, if that column, that means it's no, because I noticed there are a few rows where there is a yes. So if, I'm assuming,
So we have seven 890 hires in highway. I think there's engineer five positions and a couple of other drafting tech, land surveyor, and HR specialist.
okay,
So
and then
seven
you have some filled already, some, looks like.
Yeah, so what we do is, the 898 hires, it's not like we want to have them in there, but in general we do. There are some people who retire from the state who are tremendous resources at very, very low cost in that 898 hire position. That HR specialist has been helping us with DHER to make sure we expand these programs and get things in faster. Now, that doesn't mean we stop recruiting for them. We still recruit for these positions. And if we fill them, we move them to other positions if they're available. And if not, we cannot use them. But that's how we've been using the 890 hire.
Okay, but your authority to hire column has more yeses than nos versus the other division.
Yes. We've got full authority. We have no freeze on any of our hiring. We worked with the BNF and with the governor to ensure that they understand not only are we trying to get as much done as possible right now, we're trying to attract more money to the state. So we're not just managing our operation and managing our budget. We're trying to be a profit center for the state. This year, we got 60 million more than our authority already squeezed out of the program by working with US DOT. We know at the end of this year, in August, other state DOTs will not be able to deliver on their programs. We're working on getting another 50 million of federal funding coming in. And of course, we're going to look at the 42 million that came in as well to ensure that we start pushing more monies into our programs. If you see on our SMP, our budget went down significantly on the special maintenance side. I think we're at like 5 to 10 million right now. But if you look at our debt service, it went up. It started ticking up. The intent is for us to start making sure that we leverage as much of our bonding capacity so we can leverage as much as our federal funds into our program. So it might look from the SMP side that we're slowing things down, but we're actually ramping it up. We're making sure that we use the CIP side to take care of the level of maintenance of our system by pushing projects that matter, and putting more people to work as much as possible. You're also going to see during this session that we're going to start requesting adjustments in this budget. One of the big initiatives that we're pushing is to ensure that we connect up all of our system, all of our signals on our system, all of our signals on that county system, to ensure that we can put cameras anywhere, we can put monitoring sensors anywhere, and we can manage any intersection we want remotely. More importantly, though, once we push that wireless connectivity throughout our system and we set up that backbone infrastructure, we can start pushing into communities that are underserved right now. So we can start expanding that broadband capability from our system into communities to help out with DOE's connectivity issues, to help out with DBET's connectivity issues, to ensure that our public can learn from home and work from home. That's the intent. The reason that it's not in the budget right now is I really don't know what's going to cost. I'm trying to push 5 pilots immediately to start pushing into highly underserved communities right away for a couple of reasons. Well, we want to make sure we have high impact right away. But second, we want to vet out this process and see really what the expenditure is going to be for that larger, big bill.
Thank you.
So, Chair?
Senator Inouye?
So with regards to the 89-day hires then, so your 12, you're expecting?
Yes, 7.
Oh,
I think
okay.
airport says 12.
Okay, no, that's not what I see in your tables. You got 6 on the first table, and then you got additional 6, which includes the drafting text. Yeah, it seems like there's more. So the question then is, if it's less, that's great. But then the goal is to pretty much, because you're looking at engineers, you're drafting, and interesting, you only have 1 for general labor. I'm wondering, why do you have a general labor on 89-day hire? Because the laborers are the ones that seems more important to make sure that they're on a direct hire.
Again, anything that we have on 89-day hire doesn't mean we stop recruiting for those positions. We will continue to recruit and get as many people in as possible. Those that are on 89-day, they're very, very important to the program, and we put them into different positions where they can help us out.
Okay.
That doesn't, we're not going to hire people in those positions. We will still continue to recruit for those.
Okay, I'm glad your salary range was increased with the projects that we had, trying to make sure that, you know, you're on a competing level as well with regards to the private business sector.
Really appreciate
Yeah.
the support. And all.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jer.
Other questions for Highway? So, I guess internally though, with BNF, I'm not sure how we get the same type of response from BNF that we have with highways with the other divisions in regards to freezing.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we continue to work with BNF. Highways has provided the information that they had requested in the past to prioritizing positions that we feel are necessary first, and then justifying the need for the other positions. Also providing backup to ensure that we live within the means that we have. We know we're looking at about 20% reduction in our revenues over the next 3 years. So we're putting together plans to ensure that everybody understands. We're not just going to hire willy-nilly. We're going to make sure that we can not first need the positions, and second, we can fund them. So we'll work with BNF, with airports and harbors to ensure that we get that information to them as well. And I'm sure we can get through this hiring freeze for both of those divisions, as the governor understands how important the department is.
Yeah, but you're exempt. The governor already says he's not touching special funded agencies, and you're one of them. So you shouldn't even be having a freeze, right?
I think in general,
Well, especially
We wanna
with transportation though,
Yeah,
because goods and
exactly.
services, construction, you know, visitor industry, those are all things that affect our economy.
Exactly.
So,
No, we'll send the memo to, unfreeze those positions.
sorry, Ed, what were you saying?
I think in general for us, just like in any other state agency, we want to make sure that it's incumbent on us to justify the positions. I think once we provide that information to show why it's needed, and we all know why it's needed and how we can afford it, I think we'll be fine. So we work with BNF to make sure that we get this through.
Okay, and based on the vice chair's request, we'll send a memo to the department asking the impact of COVID on your special fund revenue. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Any questions on Zoom? Oh, where's the gavel? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.